Yo, what's up, y'all? This is NSK from Boston Celtics, and I just want to introduce a new podcast called This is the Awkward Side Hug. So go check it out. Appreciate y'all.
George Floyd. Um, I mean, everyone's seen it by now. It's all that's all over social media, the news, over the past week or two. What happened obviously was horrendous. The fact that it was caught on tape is super crazy, and it just kind of leaves like absolutely no doubt about this being like a horrendous situation. Um, you see all types of quotes all over social media and everything. uh if this is the one that got caught on film, imagine how many other cases weren't caught on film. But I think like the most important thing to say is, RIP George Floyd. Something has to change, but first I kind of want to start off with like a simple point of, I think in general people should just speak up. This is again, like I said at the beginning of the episode, it's a no-brainer, literally a no-brainer. A simple, like, there's a lot of like the least you could do's in this situation. And um it sucks that, like half of the country is divided, in that when they see this like looting and rioting happen, that they'll speak up about that. But then you kind of look at their timeline and it's like, well, what happened in the week before? Like, not a single word was said on George Floyd. um and it really sucks because I can't stress it enough, it's literally a no-brainer. um Now, of course, it's crazy that we even have to speak about this as like a topic of this versus that, because it's just it should be like the easiest choice to make. It should be the easiest movement to follow. Um, but I think another thing that definitely has to change is just the police and the system. The police basically rule the court systems. Um, I've seen on many different platforms about how the police basically police themselves, and there's got to be some sort of third party thing. And we see all of this talk from the opposition of, or from an opposing side of, well, what's your solution? It's like, well, first of all, as me and Brian would like see like on our a lot of our friends, is, it sucks there's no clear cut solution, right? But my personal opinion is just that has to be like one of the first steps, is just correcting the system, trying to find another way, because this way is, not really working. But like one final thought I have, like, just to kind of, get our points out here, is that we obviously live in a society, and it sucks because when you look at it from like a grand scale of things, societies take a lot of time to really make, like big change. um but hopefully, in what should be the easiest decision of all of our lives, when we look at this whole situation, as a human being, what I mean, not even as like left versus right with like any sort of political filters on it, but when you look at this entire situation as a human being, hopefully this is going to be, at the very least, finally a big first step in the right direction in changing a society. So I just feel like hopefully this could be the it should be the easiest decision of people's lives. But like I said multiple times, it's, to me, this is a no-brainer.
I
Something's got to change.
I've had to do a lot of educating myself, especially in these last couple of weeks, that I probably should have started a very long time ago. I, like I was telling you guys, I was watching Jalen Rose and Jacoby show on ESPN, and ESPN dedicated a whole day to this, and they were talking about it. And Jacoby, which is the white guy on the show, he said like he was against all these things on Sunday right before this happened to George Floyd, and he didn't do as much about it. And then he does carry some guilt. There's like some man had to die on Monday for him to finally feel like he now needs to take a stand. And this is stuff that we all should like. I'm guilty of that. Uh, as you guys know, I do another podcast with Young Baca about wrestling with Quincy Jones, and we were talking about this. And Young Baca brought up a point that he was saying like when it happened and he read about it, his first thoughts were just like, man, that's another one. And he even said like he was guilty of in a weird way of kind of like reading the news, hearing about it, feeling bad about it, but then ready to start his day again because it's happened so often. And when the rioting and the looting started happening, you start hearing people saying like, "Look at these stupid people," and stuff like that. And I had to speak up and say, these are people that have been silent for so long, who try to do things peacefully, and now they're just trying to be heard. And to be honest, some of these people looting and stuff like that are not even the people protesting, and some people are being set up, and arrests are still happening, and it's yeah, like you said, it's a no-brainer. Like we shouldn't be in this situation in 2020. You would think about there's enough history in our history books. There's enough for me to be ashamed of from ancestors of mine, and I was in denial of my privilege for such a very long time because I felt like I was an outlier. I listened to Nas, I watched BET, I dressed a certain way when I was in high school. I got pulled over for the way I felt like I dressed, walking home at 9 p.m. in Chino. But I was probably just as privileged of being a white guy to get out of the situation. And that's stuff that I was in denial of for a very long time. And and I was talking to our friend, MC Prototype, William Bissick, about this, and he even said like privilege has this idea of it being a negative concept, but really it's just something that some people have and don't people have, and the people who do have it should use it to help the people that do not have it. And I feel like I'm in a position where now I need to start using my privilege to help people, and I'm still educating myself on ways I can do that. And that's my piece.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that education aspect of it is a really good um, thing to incorporate, because even right now, as I listen to you, and even just kind of thinking back at like what I opened up with, I know I'm going to watch this back and sort of be like, oh well, maybe I didn't say enough, or like like maybe I was just too general here, maybe I wasn't um this enough or that enough, but yeah, that's the important thing, is just to keep educating ourselves and seeing what we can do better, and just kind of like move this society forward.
Yeah, I understand. I feel like people might listen and be like, Brian, you talked a lot about yourself in the situation and stuff like that. And I do feel that way. To be honest, I feel kind of guilty of that right now. Now that I just did it and I'm thinking about it right now.
I don't think you
But
should.
yeah,
You shouldn't. Yeah, I'm gonna just throw a couple of cents in there. I know I had my like pregame. Um, I think showing that you like, speaking on how you are able to self-evaluate yourself and realize, that you are privileged, and realize that you can do better is a very big step in the right direction. And it impacts all the people around you. It's going to impact all of those people who aren't privileged, who are your friends or your acquaintances and whatnot. And just on a larger note, like, I think it's amazing to see all these people come together and fight for the same goal, and fight for something that obviously is long overdue. And it's really amazing for it to happen in like our lifetime. Finally, like obviously one day we weren't really, like you said, young Baka just said, oh man, they got another one. And then you go about your day like it's, normal when it shouldn't be normal. And truthfully, like I had to step away from social media the last couple of days because um, not anything to do with like the the protests or anything like that, but because of the videos of how the police are handling these situations. And it really does, like you really see the police themselves, because nobody's holding them accountable. I mean, they're pushing old people, they're shooting people in the head with rubber bullets, and you just see these big holes in people's like legs, and you know their whole face is just bloody, and it's very sad. And it really, like, it hurts me as a human being to um, see people stand up for what's right and still end up getting beat, and the way they're being treated. And so I mean, I feel like, and I told you guys, like I'm all these emotions, and I can't really find the right words obviously to explain it. But I do feel that one of my not goals, but one of my responsibilities in contributing is raising my son to be a good person, a good member of society, and to show love and empathy, and just overall just be a good person. And so like that obviously to me is a big goal of mine, in continuing what all these people are doing. Like I can do that individually, and contribute to the cause, by keeping people accountable and raising my son to be a good person. You know,
Yeah.
those are
Well,
my words.
No,
staying
that's amazing.
and staying on topic, but transitioning into how a certain organization's handling it.
Yeah.
One more thing, I'm sorry, I
Oh.
gotta say this.
Go for it.
I gotta say this. All those people that are saying all lives matter, shut your mouth.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say.
Seriously.
Nobody's saying that all lives don't matter. Nobody's saying that there aren't other problems in the world. But right now, we are tackling one of the biggest issues in human existence, that has ever happened. And I think you just need to, support the cause. Obviously, we care about, all lives, but right now there's a certain issue, and especially obviously America with its history, like we need to address it. We need to, um, admit to what we've done in our past, right? Because people try to act like what happened didn't happen. And
Mhm.
so we need to address it. We need to, acknowledge that it happened, and then we need to move forward and make change.
Well put.
Exactly.
So this was an interesting one because I feel like on Monday, Roger Goodell, I believe, made a statement, and then
Yeah.
and then Thursday or Wednesday, Drew Brees made a statement, and then the NFL again. You I think Steven sent us an Instagram thing where it was just like an Instagram post. I forgot what it said, but obviously it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And
Roger Goodell's an idiot.
and then we have already the situation that's been ongoing with Kaepernick. And
Did you see the actual video of Goodell talking today?
no,
Like
I did not.
he issued an actual statement,
About Kaepernick or
not
the
about Kaepernick, about basically about how the NFL supports Black Lives Matter, and how they condemn racism.
so
And I'm just
living
like okay, yeah, go.
okay, so on Monday or Tuesday. So I've been watching when I go to work in the morning, I work from home. And I'll turn on some ESPN and I put on the background. It's usually First Take or Get Up, and then maybe a Sports Center, and then eventually I'm muting, really, really, really focus on work.
Mhm.
Hopefully nobody that works with you sees this.
It's fine.
Right?
I didn't say I don't work during the time. I just say I
Exactly.
really
He's like, I
focus.
focus at the beginning,
It's like
and I really focus after.
It's
Yeah.
your radio. It's your radio in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were talking about the situation. They were talking about Goodell's statement. And somebody, I forgot who it was. It might have been Stephen A. Smith, but it might have been somebody else. I don't want to say somebody said the wrong thing. I just listened to Stephen A. Smith a lot that day. That's all.
Mhm.
Someone said, actually, like, to be honest, they've known Roger Goodell for a long time. They actually think he's a very nice guy. And to be honest, if it was up to him, Colin Kaepernick would have been in the NFL a long time ago. If it was up to him, they would be the NFL would be a lot more progressive and a lot more on top of these situations. But the owners pay his paychecks, and he's and he is the face of the owners, and so he feels like he has to censor himself for the owners, or he's out of a job. I don't know how much of that is true or not. But I felt like I should say that just in case we kind of make this more of a Goodell situation. And I think it's more of an NFL and the owner situation.
That's interesting.
Right,
it's a possibility.
Right.
I think, though, I mean, Goodell has made good money, right? I think we can all agree.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's made good money thus far. So, I mean, I can't talk for him, but doing the right thing should, be a little more important than pleasing all the owners. Sure, maybe I won't be the NFL commissioner anymore, but you're not going to be, on the street the next day poor, homeless. Like, he could have made a difference by allowing Kaepernick, to make sure he's on an NFL team too.
Yeah, because they treated Kaepernick horribly during the whole situation, and again, it's kind of like that correlation that everybody's making right now, and that we as minorities, or like they as Black people, tried protesting peacefully originally with the kneeling and everything, but it wasn't accepted, and it was so talked down upon.
It seems like it's always diverted.
Yeah, by the opposing side, and but yeah, it's crazy. It's funny because like the NFL has so many like wrinkles that they have to iron out first, to put it lightly. And so that's why it almost like seemed comical, like when we saw all these posts. Like one of my favorite ones was the Washington Redskins tweeted like the Blackout Tuesday picture, and then I think everyone was just like, hey, you want to change your name first before you like?
Right.
It's just like, oh man, there's just so many things that like you could like. There's
layers. Like even when you're trying to do the right thing, it seems like, or some of these people are trying to do the right thing, it backfires just because of what they stood for before. And like I'll admit, like I don't mean to make this about myself, but like I have a battle rap history
white privilege
of using people's race, the way they look, the size, everything that in 2020 I'll admit I'm against now, but at the same time, but and I probably have always been against, but it's I use it for entertainment purposes. And people enjoyed it. I got laughs,
Yeah, and views. And I'm right there with you because, like, same exact thing, like you said, race jokes and like, gender jokes and sexual preference jokes, like everything. Like I would say it because it would get laughs, and I would literally like you said, I didn't even believe it back then, but I would say it because the battle rap community back then really established itself as like a safe place, and like it really was like a family. I mean, it is kind of like a family type of like atmosphere. Like you're really bonded with one another. Like these, you'll see these like really aggressive battles happening to where it almost comes to like blows and fists, and then you're like dapping up after, like, oh yeah, good stuff. So it was like it's a different culture, but unfortunately, it just doesn't stand the test of time. And just like you said, like I regret saying like, I regret I took a trip back to middle school there. I regret saying all of it, but
like
to defend you guys, because and this is just from an outsider's perspective, because obviously I wasn't in that scene, but two things. Number one, you guys were pretty young, probably, right? Early 20s, late teens. I mean, obviously, when I think about when I was that age, like we're not thinking about these issues, or we're not,
Yeah.
And two, I mean, it was a different time period, like, the early 2010, 2009, 11. Like, I mean, it was still kind of loosey goosey, As to where we've come a long way in the last, 5 years with minority groups. And,
well, the thing I was trying to get across a little bit was like, I find it interesting because going back to the Redskins thing, I could easily post something on Instagram and somebody who knows my battle rap history could come up to me and say, you're not in the right of saying those things either.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and so I find it interesting in a way, like where it's like, yeah, I agree, like stupid Redskins, stupid Washington, but at the same time, I'm like,
I would disagree
shit.
because I would disagree because you can't hold yourself. You can't hold the past, especially when you know the mistakes you've made and you've acknowledged them, and you are, obviously you're not the same person. As long as you're not hiding, you're not saying like, oh, I never did that or I was never like that, but like you admit to the wrongdoing and you are looking to improve, and I mean that's all you can ask from somebody.
This is bringing that up. I know we're getting a little off topic, but there's a show called Justified that was on FX around the same time Sons of Anarchy started ending or so, and I got into it. It was a really good show, so I told my girlfriend, it's on Hulu. Why don't we give it when I show you the show? And they were using a homophobic slur constantly during the show. And I bet you this is 10 years ago. If I watched it then, I probably wasn't thinking much about it, but I was watching it now and it's cringy to hear it and how often
Yeah.
it's used in
That's
the
crazy.
show. And it's just, it's interesting how I think, like you're saying, Steven, in a way, like how we grow over time. And someone who didn't grow was Drew Brees, apparently. And like that was such a, like, I keep going off topic, but like, it's just, I think there's a lot of layers to this.
Yeah,
That's why.
yeah.
Is Jackson Riker, Jackson Riker, who was Gunner in TNA. You might not know him because he's kind of a new guy, and he wasn't even really used too much in NXT. So like, even if you are a
This
wrestling
isn't
fan,
a wrestling podcast.
oh, my bad. But like, it had happened around the same time the Drew Brees thing happened.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's such a tone deaf thing that Drew Brees did. So much so that his own wide receiver, who I guess recently has accepted his apology, it's so crazy that like he had that interview and was like, this is where I stand up to the kneeling thing.
Yeah. And it's so funny because, like, a quick Google search, everyone was posting the picture of Drew Brees actually kneeling with his teammates with his arms over.
Was that during the national anthem?
You know what? You're right. Who knows?
It could have just
It
been like one of
actually
those
would make
prayer
sense if it
things.
wasn't. Yep. That's true.
But yeah.
That's hilarious, though.
I would just hope that, I mean, like, I would want to be obviously held accountable for my actions years ago, and make sure that people call my stupidity out, obviously. But
Oh yeah, yeah, and even on
I
like
would
the
hope,
same.
I would hope
like-
that if I were, or if I have, hurt somebody or said something that offended somebody,
Mm-hmm.
When I was a teenager, a young 20s, kid with no life experience,
Mm-hmm.
that they wouldn't still think I'm that same person today,
Mm-hmm.
and that they would give me a chance to, show that I'm more mature, and I obviously I view the world different now, especially being a father. So I mean,
yeah, and then I was even like, I even show like my because like I said, like even like echoing Brian's statement is that we didn't even believe what we were saying at the time. It was just we were trying to like win a rap battle, you know what I mean?
right.
But even like the last 2 or 3 rap battles I've done, it's like my material, like I stay with the same authentic, being myself. But now I just kind of like I wouldn't say censor myself, but I just, what I say is what I believe in a sense. Like more so nowadays than back then. Back then I would say anything just to get a rise out of the crowd. Now it's like, okay, let's speak some facts and get a rise out of the crowd, or let's actually be a good human while doing it. If that, like, even though it sounds like an oxymoron, good human battle rapper, but yeah.
And I'm sure you guys all feel the same way, and especially within the last week or two.
Oh yeah.
You guys obviously want to be better. One thing that I try to live by is be the change you want to see in the world. And so obviously I've been trying to change like my vocabulary, because sometimes I would slip up and I might say, may say the word with the A at the end, like, how, it's, and then, so it's just, you catch yourself saying things that like, you shouldn't be saying. And like, like I wouldn't, even though you feel comfortable, being a Mexican, you being a Mexican, or just Latinos, like being able to call each other certain names. They're
Yeah, yeah.
obviously, like between you and I, we're friends and it's funny. Um, but I think that needs to kind of not happen anymore.
Yeah. And like you
Um,
said, over the past week, I think we've been kind of like, without even directly saying it, we kind of echoed those sentiments of like, yeah, man, we got to kind of improve some things with ourselves too,
yeah.
like just thinking about it.
And
But
so, like I said, I try to be the change that I want to see in the world. And
yeah, there it
like I
is.
said, I think we're all, obviously you mentally stop growing your conscience, and you're always learning something every day. Nobody knows everything. And so,
I think like, and I appreciate Lex for saying this in my statement is, and you too, Stephen, is the self-reflection thing. Just like, hey, we don't know everything, and let's not pretend we do.
Mm-hmm.
And I could tell like it's really easy when someone kind of challenges where you stand socially or politically, and you want to sound confident in what you're saying. But this is a good time like to educate and to learn. And sometimes it's best just to sit back and see how the world sees it before you start making your own assumptions about how things are, because we don't know everything. Not everything on the news is true. Not everything on social media is true. And but the thing is, it's looking at the people you trust and see like, well, if they believe in this, then I should too. And yeah,
No,
yeah.
yeah, it's a lot of learning that
And
can happen day to day.
we're all one sentence away from accidentally saying something like Drew Brees did.
Yeah, man.
And I'll be honest, like in a weird way, I felt almost bad for him because I just felt like his timing was off. Like he
Yeah,
was just
yeah,
tone deaf. I think
yeah.
I do personally believe he really believes that though,
Mm-hmm.
because he wouldn't have said it if he didn't. But I believe though, like the reason why he's apologizing so much is because he does realize the timing is wrong,
Yeah,
and I don't think he fully understood why people were kneeling. And I believe he's trying to self-educate himself, which is good, but it might be a little too late.
mm-hmm. No, yeah, but I guess
honestly,
like the
yeah,
good or the silver lining. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, yesterday or when it came out, I was like, man, Drew Brees, you you
Yeah.
just
Oh,
It's
you shouldn't
and the
Island.
funny
why.
thing is, like, it was really nice and funny in a weird, and not funny. Funny's the wrong word.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Like
seeing,
ironic or
It's
yeah,
just
like
cringy,
yeah,
seeing
very
cringy for
cringy.
how
sure.
many people responded to it,
Mm-hmm.
and and I guess the funny part was his receiver, like,
Mm-hmm.
cause and Alvin Kamara
Yeah.
had made statements, and it was,
But you know what? They held him accountable,
Yeah.
and that's important.
and he realized, obviously, like shit, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
I
I think they educated him first of all. They held him accountable, and I kudos to him for coming out and saying I'm wrong. I
Mm-hmm.
apologize.
One of the most interesting conflicted moments I've had in my life, and maybe this will help us transition to our last topic,
Would you,
was the
real
Donald.
quick before we transition, would you still pick Drew Brees as your fantasy quarterback?
I haven't to this date, and I probably won't. I did once in like 2008 or something.
I think it's because no, never mind. 2008.
You know what? Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. If he's
It
on
was
the
because
waiver
I
wire,
forced your hand to do so.
no, this was a long time ago.
It was another one. Okay, okay.
If if he's on the waiver wire, but I wouldn't draft him. But if he was on the waiver wire, that's a different story.
There you have it.
Uh, um,
Yeah,
Alvin Kamara, Alvin Kamara responds to our podcast.
the headline says Brian Andrew plans to draft Drew Brees.
Brian Andrews supports Drew Brees.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh man, that's
Um,
wild.
um, I was. This is when the Clippers probably had one of the best teams they've ever had, and I remember it was the first round of the playoffs, and then the stuff comes out about Donald Sterling, and I remember I was there, and I was like really upset with Donald Sterling selfishly, because I was like, I was gonna call my team, but yeah, my
Yeah.
team, the Clippers, have every right to protest and not play the rest of the series.
Mm-hmm.
and I would have been totally okay with that. But I was upset that Donald Sterling had to do this stuff because it was taking a championship away. Possibly, the Clippers ended up losing the second round. But I remember
Was it to the Rockets?
it was to the Thunder.
Oh, the Thunder. Oh,
and,
yeah.
and I remember there was a shitty call in Game 6, and to this day, that
Was
was
that when the Thunder made it to the finals?
maybe is that the one where they lost to the Heat?
Yeah, they lost. They got swept. No, or it was
Something
4-1.
like that. So I remember that, and it's kind of brings me back to what you were maybe saying before we got on the podcast, Steven, is what should the NBA, with them coming back July 31st, do with everything going on?
That's crazy. It's funny because like my initial reaction was like, "Oh man, I'm excited," like Lakers, NBA. But yeah, that is a good point though. Like what's gonna happen, because of everything going on. Like what's really gonna happen?
The thing that the NBA has that the NFL doesn't is that the NBA at least has a better track. I'm not gonna say it's the best, has a better track record of uh, being a little bit more on top on these issues.
Yeah, I think the players have a lot more of a voice in the NBA than in the NFL.
And like a Kaepernick situation wouldn't happen in the NBA, in my opinion. They got on top of the Donald Sterling situation. They've been very involved in getting other communities a spotlight, internationally too. Letting players wear "I Can't Breathe" shirts. So.
What about the 2K protest?
Yeah.
Did you watch some of that?
That's crazy.
I'm very impressed.
Yeah.
Not only that, but just video games in general. Like
right? Yeah.
statements.
It was a dope thing. It was a dope thing.
So Call of Duty, right? Modern Warfare. When you go into the loading screen to get into a match, they have a statement on there. It says Black Lives Matter in big bold white print, and then it has their statement. And I just thought that was pretty cool. And it's like right now it's like every loading screen.
Yeah.
And they even pushed back the next season, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with Fortnite. So.
Yeah, this is a very sad time in the world, but at the same time, and maybe I'm not the one to say this because I understand, like I said, I'm not as concerned as a police officer pulling me over and hurting me. I'm optimistic with some of the change and some of the protesting and some of the voices that are being heard now that probably weren't being heard before. And like you said, this is a no-brainer, but like I said, Minnesota passed something that police officers can't use a chokehold anymore. And that should be a no-brainer. That should have been something done a long time ago.
Yeah.
But it's done now.
I would like to see change with representatives. I would like to see just new, like we're just stuck to the norms, and I think that's where we have to make the biggest change.
I guess if I were to make a final point is the events, the way 2020 has been in general, the way the last 4 years have been in general. Go out and vote. And I know and if you're not going to go, there's ways you could get a mail ballot. I understand in some states it's not as easy, but it's very important to make your voice heard. And a lot of people are shaded by the system, or they don't like the candidates and stuff like that. But we've seen how the last 4 years. I'm not going to try to give my political views out there, but we all know who I do and do not support. We all seen how the last 4 years have gone. We all know we have ICE in certain states, even ours, making their presence felt. We have discrimination. We have police officers still using police brutality. We have people hurting each other at protests. And we have a leader that's not doing it and not showing solidarity. The way the civil rights movement worked at the time is there was a little bit more solidarity between black people and white people, trying to get, you know, when dock workers of all races are not being paid and we all get behind the same common good, they show some optimism in places like Memphis and in the South and other places. I'm not saying it was perfect. I'm not saying it was beautiful, but solidarity is very important and voting is very important.
Absolutely.
Way to put it out there, Brian.
Yeah. Because if you disagree, then that's just awkward.
Yeah,
If I can fit this last thought in, for those of you who feel like, you know, you can't make a big difference, like all you need to do is start off in your own community, volunteer, go help somebody that otherwise, you know, wouldn't get help. You know, be the change you want to see. Start off small, and eventually the small becomes bigger and bigger, and you move closer and closer to what you want to see.
For sure. There it is.
You're supposed to speak up when it's uncomfortable. We're saying speak up when it's awkward. Is it bad for us to try to brand?
I know, right? We still switched it. We're like forcing on our exit. Oh, that's so bad.
And
I think that's.
We hope the next time that we do an episode for you guys, you know,
hopefully there's change.
Yeah.
Little by little.
We can kind of lighten the mood a little more.
Yeah, hopefully things get better little by little, at the very least.
No, they are going to when they get better.
Exactly. There it is.